Welcome on stage, Adrian and Barry. Barry, I have already had a conversation with you on the podcast, The Healthy Business Show, which we partnered with Discovery Business Insurance, which is how this whole partnership really started. So I want to turn to you, Adrian, and just talk to the origin of the Discovery story. It's one of the most fabled stories in the entrepreneurial landscape in South Africa, and it's this very elegant model of the vitality and discovery symbiosis. And when looking from the outside in, it just seems like it just kind of happened. It was like a shower moment, one of those really brilliant ideas. But I want to really get to the truth behind it. How did the idea start? What was the origin story for you?
When we started out, Barry and I, we were trying to build a health insurer that would be sustainable. The breakthrough came, I think, when we had this very simple idea of a medical savings account. Right, the concept of kind of part of your health being funded by a savings account. We actually didn't know at the time that we'd tapped into this amazing world of consumer power. People are empowered to spend money based on how they see fit. They should ration healthcare on their own needs and wants. And we kind of, you recall, Barry, entered a whole world of this demand side management, and we became obsessed with this idea of make people healthier and give them that power. That kind of took us, we kind of launched off that basis, but I think the epiphany around the vitality model was in fact a moment in time, I think. What happened was we were approached by the Health and Racket Club around this idea of, they had this amazing set of gyms around the country. No one had ever seen this stuff before, these beautiful gyms and people running slow motion in the nude through the gyms, and Barry and I, young actuaries, looking on. We weren't invited into those gyms.
Those were the days.
Those were the days, yeah. But the simple idea was like a cross-sell, you know what I mean? Why don't you sell your health insurance products into the gym, right? And we kind of had this obsession of make people healthier, and we'd already focused our purpose on this concept of make people healthier. And we had this moment in time flip and think, shit, this is the wrong way around. Instead of selling our products to the gym, what if you belong to Discovery and the gym was free? You with me? Yeah. If we could figure that out, that would be game, set, and match.
When was that roundabout?
We started in 92, 93 was the start. That was in 97, probably 96, 97. So that's 4 years into the and then the epiphany was, the only way to make it affordable was, could we get people to earn the gym? And how would you earn the gym? By doing healthy things, right? So if you did these healthy things and you earned like rands or like health rands or vitality points, you would get access to the gym. And that's how the whole vitality thing started. So we kind of came, it way before we understood behavioral economics and all of that stuff. Sure. And so we came across this idea of creating vitality that became the concept of just rewarding better health and creating this, what's become a shared value model, but that's a long way in the journey.
It was rewarding behavior, so to speak, right? And trying to, if I understand you correctly, really about trying to coax people into better behavior around their health, right? Was that something that you had seen anywhere else in the world? I mean,
no. We were completely and totally unique. And I think it is important to say, I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs here. It is important to say that I don't think you build great businesses on complex global trends. You with me? Yeah. An entrepreneur has a gut feel about, shit, this thing's going to sell. We didn't do market research, and we knew if you could make those gyms free, we're going to sell our products. Yeah. Very simple as that. We did the launch of that. We did the launch in the planetarium by Wits University. I remember we spoke down to our brokers from the roof like God on earth, you know what I mean? You get the gyms for free. You could have heard a pin drop, you know what I'm saying to you? Yeah. This was a unique idea. There was nothing about behavioral economics, hyperbolic discounting. This was, make those gyms free and it's going to work. Yeah. So I hope I'm not sounding flippant. I'm just making the point. We pioneered and began a journey, but the journey was based on a gut feel of what we thought our customers would want. There was no kind of shortcut.
And what was the uptake at that stage? I mean, first of all, internally, how was the response? Was everybody like, yes, we get it? Or was there a little bit of internal coaching and education?
Well, it was brutal. I think the day we launched it, the demand was kind of immediate. Our competitors immediately started complaining that we kind of wasting healthcare rands on gyms and flights, and this is wasteful stuff. Our competitors, who we are busy in a fight with at the moment, are now trying to copy what we're doing. So this is an ongoing battle 25 years later. But I think the effect was brutal and lasting. I learned one thing: great products don't need market research. If you're testing them on the market, you don't know what you're doing. I hate to sound like Steve Jobs. You didn't need to figure it out.
Well, there's a great correlation. I mean, it almost feels like when the early days of the iPod, iTunes symbiosis, it kind of feels the same way. The way there's a cyclical relationship between them, right? And just a personal question: was that some kind of do you see Apple now as an influence, as a similar sort of positioned company?
I mean, listen, you've got to be humble. Apple is one of the greatest companies ever. I do think, listen, we were doing this stuff when Apple was emerging in its second phase, so we've never copied Apple, but I do think there is something about Discovery's obsession with the product and the beauty of the product. You know, if you look at our Discovery Bank, I'm obsessed with the kind of the physicality of it. You know what I'm saying? It needs to feel, you know, so I think we do have a similar obsession with the quality of the product, you know, and bringing something that was, I think the Discovery story, and Barry co-created this stuff, but I think the healthcare triangle and everything about what we did was take something that was intangible and make it tangible and visible. You could feel it, you know what I mean?
Barry, if we can turn to you for a second, just in terms of those early days then, and we're going to I want to return to the product and the focus on the product in a few minutes, but can we talk to you a little bit about that early stage? I mean, bearing in mind there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, business owners, small business owners, who I believe, I mean, we look to you guys as you know, a generation prior to us, and who've built this amazing world-class company, but it wasn't always like that, right? It was at one stage surely a bit of a scrappy entrepreneurial bunch of guys all huddled together fighting in the trenches, or not?
Thanks, Fred. And it's great to have everyone out here tonight, so just to welcome everyone. Look, I think we always had this vision of creating a great business. Even when we started out, we were youngsters working at Liberty Life before we started this. And we always wondered, well, what is Donnie Gordon doing in that office? Surely we could also do it as well. So we always had the ambition and I think the confidence that we could also do it ourselves. We had a great partner. We started out with Rand Merchant Bank. I mean, they were a phenomenal shareholder. They're still a shareholder of ours. Our chairman up front was Larry Dippenaar, one of the best businessmen around. So I think we always had the vision of creating something iconic, a great business. And it was always for the long term. We were never going to do it for the short haul. I mean, when we started out our business, we started at a pretty tough time in South Africa. In 1992, it was really a hair-raising moment in our country's history. And we were starting a health insurer. I'll never forget going to work and like woozy, like questioning, you know, we're starting this health insurance business and the country's falling around us. But we had the confidence to build. As I said, we always had the vision of creating something special that we wanted to be part of, that's bigger than any personality. There was, you know, that we can create something. I mean, like look at this, you know, offering work to so many people and doing something positive. So that was and we went in with that confidence, even though certainly all those startup stuff we had, you know, the difficulty in starting out and that type of thing. But we always had the ambition.
And you mentioned the challenges of the early years. I mean, can you talk to some of those challenges? Obviously, the macro climate, there was a lot of incendiary political scenarios that were unfolding at that particular point in time. What were the business challenges that you were facing at that point?
So, I mean, typical stuff when we started out was distribution. Who was going to distribute our product, our branding? I mean, when we started out, we were going to be, I don't know if you've ever seen the logo on R&B, the little keys there. We're going to call ourselves Key Life. And we started out, Adrian and I starting out this life insurance business with R&B. We were going to be the life insurance business. And 2 months after we started, they went and bought Momentum Life. So what were we going to do then? So we actually pivoted more towards health insurance. That we always had the intention of going into life insurance. It wasn't like we're giving up that dream. So, I mean, there were a lot of lessons early on. I mean, I can go through them. It's like still, you know, it's 27 years ago, but I can remember it like yesterday. And it was, I think, you know, for me, those times, and I still live with them because those are the most enjoyable times in the business. Building the business, the initial part of it, and I still love it. That's why I'm involved in. I love to be involved in all like the startup activity at Discovery. If Adrian says, "Listen, get involved in the startup," I'm there, right up front, because I enjoy that time in the business. That little bit unknown, trying to sort the puzzle out, trying to fix the business, trying to get it on its trajectory. I think those are the most exciting times in a business.
And the culture back then, I mean, I think, Discovery is famous for its culture, right? There's a strong culture, and obviously since I've been working with you guys and doing the podcast and now working with the team, there's, I think, a really positive and very clean culture that you've developed. How intentional was that? I mean, Adrian, from your perspective, was that something that you put down on paper right at the early days?
To pick up something that Barry said that might frame this, I mean, we were never, Barry, a rough and tumble bunch of entrepreneurs. I mean, Barry liked to think he was a jolla, but we're a bunch of nerdy actuarial guys. Yeah. But in truth, we started out, this is an institutional business. We started out with governance, with well capitalized. I mean, it wasn't how can I say, like a bunch of rough, tough guys who made good. It wasn't. It was institutional.
Laurie Dippenaar looking over your shoulder.
We had a strong board from the get-go, guys like Laurie who were incredibly influential and very helpful. But I think from the start we had this very simple framework, purpose values. Purpose values. So make people healthier and 8 core values. And in fact, I would say, and I'm sure Barry would concur, from the get-go, most of the debates around the exco and our conferences were about values. They weren't even about the business stuff. So the culture formed around how can I say, around values, around this idea that ego must be much less than IQ. Those kinds of things. And I do think that framed the organization. I don't think we've changed much, Barry. I think it's very much how it was.
Just a little bit grey, I think that's the...
Well, he talks about a previous generation. I mean, did you hear that kind of drivel?
Well, I just cut off a big, thick head of dreadlocks, so I feel like a new man. But just in terms of that, would you advise young entrepreneurs then to start with the values right at the beginning, to create a framework of strong values? I mean, is that something that Barry, from your perspective, when you speak to all the entrepreneurs that you encounter, and you deal with quite a few, is that a large part of the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, one of the things that I've actually learned from Adrian since I've been working with him for 30 years is ethics. You've got to start off with the right framework, the right ethics in the business. I've just a compliment to Adrian, I've worked with him for a very long time. I've never ever said, I don't get that decision, or I don't get that. And I've always understood the decision from a business perspective and that type of thing. So I think an ethical framework when you're starting out a business and doing it for the right reasons and that type of thing. And when you're trying to make money out of a harebrained scheme and a this and a that, I always feel uncomfortable about those things. I think businesses need to be there for the long term and sustainable and create value, and these are kinds of things. And whether it's a small business enterprise or a large organization, I actually think it's similar kind of thinking. I don't think they differ much. Obviously the ambition differs and that type of thing, but the framework and the values and the ethics should be set up from the get-go. And that's what creates great businesses, sustainable business. I mean, I've seen Adrian's part of this thing called the CEO Circle, where we're trying to find entrepreneurs for the SME fund. And I was part of the panel that chose a few of these entrepreneurs. You can pick the companies where the CEOs have got those values. You can see it immediately. The way they run it, the way they think about their business, they take it seriously. They're not there for the quick buck. They're conservative in the way they do it. I mean, you can actually just pick them out. I mean, it is for me, it's quite, and I think it's very, very important to run a sustainable business on that basis.
How important was it, Adrian? I mean, you already mentioned Laurie Dippenaar. How important was the aspect of having, even by default, it sounds like from your perspective, mentors at that early stage who could guide you and give you the high-level feedback that you required in those early days?
Listen, I think it's crucial. I think the research shows mentorship is fundamental. That's how we felt, Barry. I think from the start we had an executive committee When I started executive committee, then Barry joined. They were actually non-execs, but we started with always this idea of external probing and questioning, and I've always taken that stuff very seriously, whether it's internal audit or non-executives. Trying to listen to external perspectives is absolutely crucial. But I want to pick up just one thing. I think that values are critical, but I think purpose is critical. I think a great business, you've got to have something society wants. You know what I'm saying? If you're just like peddling a bunch of things, you're a trader. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying I think if you want a business that is sustainable, it's going to grow, it's about purpose. And I think, I'm sure Barry will agree. If you think about how we went on this journey, most of our decisions were around how you take the purpose forward. You know what I'm saying? We've just done this pledge, and globally over 100 million people trying to make healthy. It's the same stuff we spoke about 25 years ago. So I really think a great business starts with, you've got to have a purpose. You've got to have something to offer society. Yeah. Else what are you doing?
Yeah, and that's amazing that you've maintained that consistency of purpose over such a long period of time. If you look at Discovery, again, looking from the outside in, there appears to be just this amazing culture of innovation. Was that something that you intentionally fostered from the outset? And if so, how does one do that? Is it a leaning in, embracing? How did that evolve over time?
Well, talking about for Barry and me, I think Barry and I started out as product development activities, right? So that's all we knew, right? We knew like a cycle of development, you know. So, I'm not sure we're the right guys to run the United Nations that just stays the same. We are constantly pushing. We've just come out of an executive committee meeting. I see some of my colleagues here. My sole purpose here in that meeting was to try and cause trouble with the ideas they've come forward with. You know, how do we like squeeze out? And I think we've got something. I see Roed there. I'm convinced there's something special in our debate. So the whole cycle of what we do has been about the cyclical process of innovating, improving, not for the sake of it. I think that it's such a competitive space, and you don't run out of innovation. When you innovate and you come up with a good idea, then that opens other doors. Then more doors, then more doors, you know what I mean? So innovation is an unlimited quantity. It just keeps going. So Barry, it's all we've known.
Yeah, also, I just want to add, I've always believed in, as Adrian, that it's in the power of the group. You can come up, you can sit in your office and come up with an idea. But if you're bouncing it off a few people and debating it and trying to pick, not nastily picking holes in the idea, but trying to fathom the idea out and come with the best argument for a certain concept. For me, that's gold, because then you can quickly see, oh, that makes sense. Intuitively, it makes sense. Rationally, it makes sense. So there's a massive amount of power in the debate and the collective thinking. I think, often Discovery gets accused of homogeneity, but actually to a certain extent, there is a bit of benefit in groups, in that group thing that creates this, to a certain extent, creates a positive outcome in terms of that product development process.
Sure. So do you then, okay,
So we're not talking about homogeneity, I'm talking about actuaries. We employ a lot
of smart people in this building, for sure. I think the reality is that we talk around a diversity and in culture, this common thinking, and I need to get my words right here, is that it fosters a healthy tension. I think Jeff Bezos speaks about it in that you should be challenging ideas, should be challenging the preconceived perceptions that people have continually. And is that something that you do in terms of challenging ideas and challenging people within the organization, like a healthy tension? Does that make sense in terms of the question?
Well, I think there is. I think our approach has always been to try and build kind of a consensus around ideas, as Barry says, to challenge stuff. I think, Barry, we naturally are contrarian. I never take anything, that's how the world is. It drives me insane, that kind of nonsense. I'm trying to say, when people put an idea down, it's got to be interrogated.
You can't innovate if you think like that,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I think also this, people use analogies or phrases. Takes two to tango. That's kind of junk that forces you into a box. I'm trying to say to you, I believe you've got to interrogate, you've got to put stuff down. I think Barry's point is critical. What I think we've done well is the ability to add IQ points together. You know what I'm saying? There are 10 people with 100 IQ points each. If you really got good leadership in that group think, you get 1,000 IQ points. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think it's a critical piece of, building a business. I mean, Barry, we've built Discovery on this idea of the business case prevails, trying to get away from ego, trying to make sure what is best for the business. We were debating initially on structure. I mean, our whole thing, it's littered with egos and difficulties and histories, but what is best for the business? Make sure you're staying pure to that kind of ideology.
Sure. So, I mean, if we look at then this 25-year journey, it feels like it's just been this, I mean, again, an external perspective that it's just a smooth ride. Were there any times in this journey where there was an existential threat that you felt, flip, there's something that could actually swamp the business? Adrian, I mean, were there times when it wasn't actually as easy as
it's never easy. It is never easy. There's always, I mean, we started out, Barry will recall, we had a great product. We had no context of scale. We came out of big insurance companies with distribution channels. Things never sold. So it took us a long time to get going, I remember. We got to 1,800 members, and we added a whole lot of members, and we kept...
When was that, Roed?
This is probably March, April, June 1993. We couldn't get past 1,800. It was like a mathematical paradox. We kept adding people, but we stayed at 1,800 members. I don't know.
I think you're allowed to, that's why.
Probably. But, I mean, I guess there are things like when the laws changed in the entire healthcare financing area in 1999 with the Medical Schemes Act. Virtually everything we did, from medical savings accounts to how we priced risk, all of it was made illegal. And those challenges go on. We've got all kinds of stuff. Brexit in the UK. There's consistent challenges. I mean, personally, I've found, as hard as it is, your best moments in the building of the business is just embracing the complexity and the solutions, Barry, to those difficulties, what kind of propels you forward. So it's the ability to embrace the problem, to go into it.
But Adrian, there was one moment, is the change in the Medical Schemes Act from 1999 to 2000. To adapt to that change was a very difficult time for us, but actually one of our finest moments, because we got together as an executive team and we worked through it and we found solutions that were, in my view, exceptional and got the growth in the business. So out of that difficult time, we actually, I think, got some substantial growth.
Just think about it. Our business was built on pricing risk accurately, right? So they're based on age and all kinds of factors. So as you got older, you paid more, right? So the new law came in that everyone pays the same rate, regardless of age. So healthier younger people have to pay more. Older, sicker people would pay less, which is egalitarian and good. But when you do that, your healthy people leave. They're not going to pay more. So your average rate goes up. So you get this kind of death spiral. We couldn't solve it. We thought this, I remember at one point thinking, we're not going to make this. But as Barry said, it was like an epiphany. Boom, like a moment in time. We figured it out. And I think those are the times that make a business very resilient. You develop a kind of grit and resilience that is, you always feel is a solution.
Sure, and that I think is true to any great entrepreneur, right? You need to, it's not going to just, sometimes it is born, people are born with that, but I think it's revealed over time, right? When you mentioned product a little bit earlier and your obsession with product, and I think that's very clear. I think what is quite clear is that there is a discipline around product as well, which is also going back to the Apple analogy where you don't just release, I think there's a lot of companies, I mean Nokia comes to mind, where there's just so much brand extension where you eventually just so diluted, and there seems to be quite a strong discipline around releasing new products. How do you go about that process? How do you decide upon what, because it must be tempting. You've got such a strong, iconic brand to be able to extend the brand into so many different areas quickly. What does that process look like of deciding what to launch when and that process of innovating a new product in a new category?
I mean, I've never liked the term brand, you're a great brand. I think we're much more profound. Actually, the brand Barry came up with in a flight, remember that? He said, we're like a discovery. So that's who we are, But the truth is, I think we've only gone into businesses where we think our model works well, right? And we've kind of, there's like a rhythm to the innovation, I feel. So I think most businesses tend to react to events. They're event-based. Something happens in the environment, they feel they have to innovate. We are time-based. Every year at a specific time, September comes, we have our launch. So that rhythm creates a cycle of innovation. So we're coming up now to September. We spent this afternoon going through what we're going to bring out. So there's a rhythm, and it's quite thematic. We know where we're going. The bank is obviously critical in its evolution. So I think there is a process, but to an extent, I think there's a rhythm and a cycle that we stick to. And that's become a whole organization flows with that rhythm. I think it's important.
In terms of you mentioned on the podcast that you still feel like a startup entrepreneur sometimes, right? And I remember that well. And I know my own engagement with discovery has been quite interesting. I mean, I think the content team, Natasha, Nadia, and Marlies phoned me, I think it was in February, asked me to come on board with a podcast. Within 4 weeks, we were doing a podcast, right? And then after that, the idea was born around doing the Inspire events and collaborating, and a few months later it was done. So and I come from an agency background where I was dealing with big corporates, and that lag and that lead time was so long and drawn out, and it just felt effortless, right? And is that an intentional thing? I mean, that sort of almost feels like a startup culture, that things move quickly, they move fast, and you execute quickly.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, I like the feeling around it. First of all, it's positive. You're not going to start anything if you're negative about, the business model, the environment, etc. That's what I feel at the moment in South Africa is a major issue. People are negative, etc., etc. They're not starting things. But how do you change the environment if you're not positive and building? So everyone starts getting negative. It's a very bad attitude, because what are you going to do? Just complain, sit there and complain? Actually, go out and try stuff. I like the feeling, the positivity, the thinking, the energy, everything associated with that phase in the business. I just enjoy that piece of it. It's just in my heart. I feel it even if I'm working in an existing business. I like thinking like an entrepreneur, like a startup person. How are you going to change this business? How are you going to improve in this business? I think even if you're working on an existing business, you've got to feel that way. You've got to feel like, the challenge is coming, your competitors are coming, your whatever. You've got to feel like, you've got to reinvent it. To just, to milk what you currently got, I don't think is the right way. You've got to mold it and change it and develop. And like Adrian said earlier on, I think a fact is that we like to build on success. So if something's working well, how do we build it and how do we extend something? That for me is a startup mentality. So I just personally, I like it. I think our organization is very much like that. We employ people that are similarly minded, who like that idea of that feeling of positivity, of driving, of trying to do something here, that's why I enjoy coming to work.
I'd add something to this. The power of the founder's mentality is critical. The founder's not us, I'm saying our team. The founders, there's a lot of work done on this around the founder mentality. As soon as you lose that, and they call it things like the fog of governance, and statistics count more than people. As soon as you lose that, you've lost your way. And I think what we've tried to create here is a startup owner, manager, founder mentality organization with scale. It's kind of, if you can achieve that together, you've got a lot of power. So, I think that Discovery, I'm very proud of its governance, its scale. It's very institutional. But as Barry says, there's like a start-up founder mentality in what we do. And I think if you can get the best of both of those, you've done well. What you don't want is a small company with a bureaucracy. You want a big company with a startup mentality.
Yeah, that's great. And I can personally testify to that just with my own experience in the last couple of months. And talking about scale and moving abroad and Discovery in terms of a concept, how has in terms of moving into new markets and replicating this symbiotic model in other regions, Barry, how did that evolve, and what did the initial forays feel like?
So first of all, a lot of it was through demand, because insurance companies around the world saw the success of Discovery, saw the success of our Vitality business in the UK, and then looked at the business model and said, this kind of business model makes sense. I think the two epiphanies in the business model that Adrian spoke about earlier was managing behavior, and then the link of that behavior to risk. Now, if you look at most financial services organizations around the world, they don't do that. So they don't engage your clients around behavior, trying to improve their behavior. They don't link it to the underlying risk of that organization. So Discovery's got this model. It works. It's worked in South Africa. We've shown that it's worked in a developed market in the UK. So to a large extent, those early days of going internationally was companies approaching us still today. I mean, we get approached all the time. We don't go out and market. It's not like we've got a marketing team that go out to different countries talking to insurers. We've done it a few times, and we've done it once or twice, but in general, people have contacted us. So when we started out, Adrian's got a good relationship with he's our chairman today, Mark Tucker at AIA. We worked with him at the Prudential. He went to AIA, so they liked what we did with them at the Prudential, and they wanted us to do something similar to AIA, and that's our relationship with AIA really got it going for us internationally. So, and this whole idea of taking this behavior change model into other markets.
It's interesting. Just on Barry's point about entrepreneurship and a kind of a owner-manager culture. Mark Tucker, who's I think today one of the most successful insurance people who chairs HSBC, went to AIA and had a similar kind of entrepreneurial mindset. How do I bring this vitality model into Asia? It's kind of a ridiculous idea in a massive, one of the biggest insurers in the world. But he's got a similar kind of restless, how do we improve things? So through that process, we kind of learned lessons over years with AIA, but it actually, Barry, came from the same entrepreneurial, how do you change institutions rather than just let them run, And it's been an amazing journey.
I want a personal question just for me, because I'm curious about it. It might be a tough one, but in terms of I know there's a question for both of you, Adrian and Barry. What is your personal sentiment at the moment towards South Africa? There's so much bad news, Barry. You mentioned about positivity, and I think it's important for us to project positivity. But in reality, if you don't mind sharing, what are your thoughts and the balanced view that you might have about where we stand, and with particular reference to the role that entrepreneurs and SMEs and our brethren and sisters over here have?
I've got a lot of strong feelings about this. When you say in reality, that's being positive is in the face of reality. You know what I'm saying? It's easy when it's easy. It's when it's difficult. Maybe speaking on what Barry said, I think what we learned early on, 1992, was that it's in difficult times that you build. It's in difficult times where assets are underpriced, opportunities are overlooked, people are distracted. So this is a time now where people are worried. This is our time to build. So I'm often asked, we're building a bank. The only time that you shouldn't be doing this if you really expect Armageddon. If you don't, and you believe the world is cyclical, you must always be building in difficult times, because when the cycle turns, you'll be in a good place. I'm very outspoken about South Africa. I don't minimize all the massive problems of inequality, of poverty, of Eskom, of crime. We have all that stuff. But it's important to say that, I ask a lot of people, is our GDP bigger now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Most people say no, not per person, not in dollar terms. It is. The country's bigger, it's richer, poverty levels are lower, HIV levels, infection rates are lower, murder rates are lower. So I hate to sound like, Bill Gates or Hans Rosling, these guys or Steven Pinker, if you read his stuff. The world is a much better place than it used to be, and I think one of the tactics of life is the ability to, not to ignore negative issues, but to seek positive signals. And I think Barry had to read it in 1992. I remember well, one of our colleagues had a hijacking at home it was a terrible crime in their house. We were living through very difficult times. It's those times that I think you need to build. So I don't think you should take a binary view about South Africa. I think you should say there's a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of positive stuff. And I think you should find those positive signals and you should build. That's the time to build. And when the cycle turns, and it will, you'll be in a good place. That's why we're here. That's what we did in 1992, frankly.
Yeah, just my perspective is, if the country wants to create jobs, and I think that is the most important thing, what creates jobs is economic activity. So you definitely need economic activity. No one else creates jobs. Jobs aren't created out of thin air. They're created out of economic activity. I was fortunate enough, the last couple of months I spent a week in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam. If you look what happened in Vietnam, it went through a massive amount of crises many times. If you go there today, there is significant economic activity, just unbelievable. The economy is growing at 7%. We shouldn't be looking in my view, as South Africans, to the UK or the USA, etc., look towards Vietnam. What are they doing to get that right? It's just economic activity. People are working. Everyone's operating. You're going in the streets. Sure, there's a lot of poverty there, but people are operating. You know what I'm saying? There's a culture of that. For me, if there's one thing I would do is the understanding that in order to create jobs, you need economic activity, and that's, for me, the area to concentrate on. If you want economic activity, you've got to look at, as Adrian says, look things in a positive direction. You've got to believe in the future and drive and build, etc. And and I've often said that I don't think, everyone says it's poor education, it's this and that. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. I think it's about attitude. You've got to get the right attitude. People got to have the right attitude to say, listen, no matter my circumstance, no matter my background, no matter my educational levels, I know this is easy to say, but, let's start operating. Let's start producing something, become whatever. Just, I think that whole idea for me is what will change this country. People just start the great economic activity. I think, as Adrian says, first of all, South Africans tend to have lack of self-confidence about it. I think we've done exceptional. You compare South Africa to the other BRICS countries. I think South Africa's they talk about civil society. I think we actually got a very strong voice in South Africa. I think we've got a lot of opportunities. Obviously, China is massive and these kinds of things. But you look at Russia and Brazil. I think we've got the ingredients. We just got to get positive, get more economic activity, get a bit of self-confidence. For me, those are the things to concentrate on.
Say one thing, that what creates jobs is entrepreneurs, nothing else. People have this misconception, it's big business. Big business does not create jobs. Big business destroys jobs. One of the most prolific, I won't mention his name, business leaders I met, he said, I wish government would understand, I don't wake up thinking about how to create jobs, I wake up thinking about how to destroy them. Because if you're a big organization, right, you can't grow faster than GDP, you agree? So if you're going to get profit growth higher than GDP growth, you've got to cut the bottom line. You understand? The only people that create jobs are entrepreneurs. That's factual. And I think the only way to get economic activity is to grow entrepreneurship, to create an environment where people are feeling positive to invest and they're starting businesses. Else you've got a limited pie that you can't scale. So entrepreneurs are underrated, and I think we need a culture here of romanticizing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I could, obviously.
Not us, proper entrepreneurs. Well, not sitting here, I'm saying starting up.
No, I think we look to you for these lessons, and certainly Heavy Chef has been built upon those principles. I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of becoming doers, we do need to have this, and we need to tell the stories. We need to put the entrepreneurs here, like Aisha Pandor and Skulk Nolte and a lot of these guys who are popping to the surface. You're just doing amazing things, and to tell their stories, right? So with that in mind, and I'm conscious of time, I just wanted to end off my Q&A with you and open it up to the audience. But I wanted to ask one last question. Are there any really kind of salient lessons and leave-behinds that you could provide for us in terms of things? You've obviously been through this amazing journey, 25 years, and come out the other end, and you're still growing. You still consider yourselves as startup entrepreneurs to an extent. What are some of the real kind of fundamental lessons that you stand by?
In terms of entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship, yeah. Tough question, on the spot.
I'll give you a few. They're the same things I knew them actually when I started, I kind of feel them more now. Positivity is the most powerful fuel of all. I think when you're positive, you invest. When you're positive, you're creative. I don't mean naive positivity. No, I'm saying seeking positivity is a critical attribute of success. I think having a purpose, dreaming, setting goals is critical. And I think those things are, and I think Barry's point about integrity and ethics, I think those things are not about IQ or ability. Ironically, it's about attitude. And I think I met some people with pretty mundane capabilities, but with kind of just a sense of purpose, positivity, and a grit. They make their way. So if you gave me one attribute, ignoring honesty and integrity, that's a given, but if you gave me one attribute, it would be the ability to seek positive signals. Sounds naive, but I believe it to be true.
Yeah, look, I mean, Adrian and I do differ on this point I'm about to make. Adrian is, builds large businesses exceptionally well. I just like to build off smaller of strengths. I like, certainly in the smaller SME businesses and that, to build off success. Start off small, build off success, and build a great, and manage that success. Don't overextend yourself, etc. I find a lot of businesses like they see that success coming and then they overinvest and then the thing turns around. So my view is, and I've seen some great businesses, just they see something and they build off that success over time. And I think, first of all, the first and main step is actually just do something, get going, right? Make that first step. I know a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs are like stuck in the headlights, what should we do, etc. I've lost my job, I haven't got something for 6 months, I'm looking for something. Screw that, go out and do something on your own. Make that first step. I find a lot of people are just in that mist. Just make it first step, and then I think slow and steady growth. Don't bang it straight away. And if something is successful, that's when you go gung ho.
Sure. Thank you. We've just had a campaign which we did with Yoko called Just Start, and it was just such an amazing thing. We were going into the townships, going into rural communities where looking at how the communities there were facing problems. There were so many people within those areas. We were in Kailicha on Saturday, and the latent potential that's sitting in that community, which is, it's in the millions of people, is just extraordinary. If they're just given those opportunities, the networks, the information, access to funding, of course, but just start, right? Guys, thank you so much for your time, for attending tonight, the first of the Inspire sessions. A massive thank you to Anton and his team for believing in this concept and really backing us and putting us on stage. And thank you, Barry and Adrian. Also, as was aptly said there, for making many of us healthier people, which I think is great. That's something very few people could say. And well done. Long may your success continue. Can we give Adrian and Barry a warm round of applause?